One sport which put India on the international map is billiards, and the credit for this goes to three individuals: Wilson Jones, Michael Ferreira and Geet Sethi. With sheer hard work and determination to succeed, these three brought glory not just to themselves, but to the country as well.
She's had a phenomenal tournament, knocking out the 2, 3, 4 and 5 seed, I think it is.
Right.
No, sorry, the 3rd, 4th and 5th.
That's right.
He's had a tremendous tournament he's had. Very fast, but extremely careful. And I've got a feeling that Joshi, as you saw then, is quite careless comparatively. Joshi has had a phenomenal tournament, knocking out the 2, 3, 4 and 5 seed, I think it is.
Right.
No, sorry, the 3rd, 4th.
The youngest of the three is none other than Geet Sethi, who first captured the World Championships in 1985 at a young age of 24 years.
Wonderful catching up with you again, and with all your exploits on the baize table. You've done wonders for the morale of Indian billiards followers, and you of course have reached the pinnacle of the game in your very bright and brilliant career. What attracted you to the sport? I mean, especially when it wasn't available to the average youngster. What attracted you towards it?
I don't know, I was always attracted by it. I mean, I used to, even as a 9-year-old, I used to go and just peep into the billiard room, and sometimes, you know, give a $1 or a $2 note to the marker to just let me sit inside to watch. Billiards and snooker is something about it which attracts youngsters. I don't know what it is. I think it is, at least 10 years ago, it was the fact that it was something, you know, which one is not allowed to do, and anything what one is not allowed to do, one wants to watch.
The minute you say don't, then
yeah,
the
that's it.
sign to do. Yeah.
And it was a very adult kind of game, you know, like golf, very adult game. You say what's it all about?
Do you play golf?
I have played golf, but not regularly.
Okay, we'll get back to that. But you went for this junior nationals then, and what happened?
Yeah, that was the first junior nationals ever held, and I was one of the first players to represent the Gujarat state in playing the nationals. And I won the inaugural billiards and came runner-up in snooker. And that was in Jamshedpur in '76 sometime, I think.
That's amazing. So you won the first ever junior nationals, but how much time did you and your friends, colleagues who took part, really have time to prepare for that, considering that most of you were not allowed to play?
Yeah, well, just a year and a half maybe. So it wasn't that we were making some big breaks or anything. I think my highest break was 95, I remember, and that was good enough to get me the title.
Was that your first big sign of wanting to do much better in billiards, wanting to go ahead and maybe represent the country? What were your goals after winning the first
It was, you know, because when I started, it was for the sheer love of the sport. And once you have a tournament, you've kind of, you have something to gauge your own standard by. You realize, oh, as a junior, okay, I've won the national title as a 12 or 13, 14-year-old chap. So that spurs you on to put in more time, to put in more effort. You say, okay, I'm going to practice more. I saw Michael Ferreira for the first time play there. I saw Arvind Savur play, and I said, God, I mean, like, you know, just look at them play. And that had a lot to do in the overall progress in sport, I think, in billiards.
So what were the early obstacles that you had to face in order to become a much better player? What were the problems?
I don't think I had any problems as such. I think the only thing that comes in a way is that when, as a student, you're supposed to do well in studies. Coming from a middle class background, my father was in the civil aviation. He obviously, I mean, we're not a business family, so he expected me to do well in studies, and possibly that was the only obstacle. There was nothing else. And after a couple of years of starting, I was totally hooked on to the game. So it was school and billiards, nothing else.
Okay, but all this achieving was going on, all the performance was coming in, but where was the encouragement coming from, the inspiration? Did you have any heroes, idols? How did you manage that end?
Well, when I was coming up, the name in billiards was Michael Ferreira. He was the world champion, he was the national champion. I had heard of a chappie called Satish Mohan, who later on I spent a lot of time with. Unfortunately, he's no longer, he died. So I think Michael Ferreira was the real idol. I mean, in '78 I saw him make 1,000 break, and you know, that was there were very high standards which was set, which one had to look up to. And so there was never really a problem in kind of motivation or in setting high standards for oneself.
Mike, in many ways, I think you can be called the original mentor of Geet Sethi. Of course, he's gone on to do wonderful things in the world of billiards, but what was your role initially in spotting him and grooming him for the best in the world?
Well, to be fair, I don't think I had any sort of specific grooming of the lad. When I was playing and he was a young man, obviously he watched me, so I dare say that he imbibed a few things from my game, from my approach or whatever. And since then, since he's developed in his own game and as a person, we've had the good fortune of traveling together, playing together in many tournaments. And as a person who is certainly 20 years plus his senior, I think he has perhaps learned from whatever he finds is worth following and has rejected what he finds is not worth following. So I think it's a question of the experience of being together, which has benefited him, and I must say it's benefited me as well, because it's nice to interact with a younger person.
But could you make out from the very beginning that Geet Sethi had a world champion in him?
Yes, I think way back in the early 80s when he was playing as a junior, he certainly showed that spark of excellence, which is a must really if any young person is going to make it to the top.
1985, I think, was really the start of my growth in the game, and it was one world title, and there were people ahead of me who had won the world title 3 times. They had set amazing records in the game, so it was just the start for me. Really, it was.
He wishes to concede. I think he has been absolutely. He wants to give up the game, I think, but I don't know. The chief referee, Mr. Kapoor.
This young man who attained this feat against all odds was fascinated by the green table right from childhood. This fascination soon turned into a single-minded determination to master the game. In 1976, he won his first major title, the National Juniors Championship, and from that day, there was no looking back for Geet.
Make something out of it, and they have switched on the lights. I think the
seniors national title and the World Billiards Championships were all his for the asking.
It was an indication. The lights were put on. Has won very handsomely, being congratulated by the crowd, the chief referee, the scorers.
And the proudly raises the trophy up, and the president helps him raise it up.
What was the feeling? Was it euphoric?
It was beautiful. I mean, actually, as a 24-year-old, you won a world title. It's something that happens once. It was beautiful. It was really lovely.
And what did that do to your goal setting? I mean, were you pleased with it, or did new goals then come up, or some complacency? How did you handle it?
I think what happened with that world title was that it infused a lot of confidence. It's amazing what one victory can do, what one tournament title can do to your whole confidence. And the game that you play in practice started coming out more consistently in tournaments, the 700 breaks, the 500 breaks. And from one world title to the next, I won the world title, the next world title also. So that, according to me, was a better performance than winning the world. Winning the world title is okay, but to retain the title is always difficult. And
okay, let's talk about pressure at that stage. Now, you were, by any standard, a public hero by then. And there was lots of adulation and pressure being the world champ. So how did you handle the dark side of being the world champ?
What pressures? I mean, well, I guess there is expectation of the people, there is expectation of people around you that you're going to do well, but you take it in your stride. I mean, The thing to do is to play the game, to practice the game and have your commitment to the game. You don't really think too much about the expectations of people. Or you think about your own expectations, you think about what you're feeling, what you have to do. You forget about the result, and even while playing, you forget about the outcome of the match. You just concentrate on what you got to do, on the stroke that you got to play.
So you never let the pressure get to you that you're really playing with the hopes of the entire nation on your shoulder.
You don't think of it that way. I mean, if you think of it that way, then you're obviously not concentrating on the job at hand.
Sure. One major criticism that a lot of people level against Indian sports persons is the very old bandied lack of killer instinct. Now, how did you tackle that personally, and what do you think of this allegation anyway?
I think a lack of killer instinct is you basically talk of killer instinct, when people say that, I think they mean that there is a lack of temperament basically. And temperament, I feel, is a lack of concentration more than anything else. When I'm playing, when anybody is playing, you have a situation where it's a tight situation, right? Where, as you say, it's all about nerves. And the ability to blank out the eventual outcome of that match at that time is basically temperament, according to me. The ability to blank that outcome of the match. It's as simple as that. And the thing to do is to concentrate on the job at hand.
But generally speaking, would you agree that this is an accusation that is that's worthwhile for Indian sports persons in general?
I would. I mean, history has proved that we've not done well in sport, and we've missed out on close finishes and things like that. So possibly it's a fair comment, and especially in team sport where we've lost the initiative early on in the game or later on in the game. So going by the records, possibly it is a fair comment. Yes.
Well, in your case, of course, the accusation is completely invalid because you've gone on to achieve all sorts of pinnacles in your career. But coming to fresh pinnacles now, there is the World Professional Billiards scenario that you did very well in and are continuing to participate in. How well do you think you've done? Where is your career taking you? And what about the movement itself, the World Professional Billiards movement? Is it slated for bigger things?
I think it is. You know, when Norman Dagley turned professional in 1985, he started the trend of the modern professional era, and with him you had the likes of Mike Russell and Peter Gill. Mike Russell, he turned professional even without participating in a World Amateur Championship, and then came along Peter Gilchrist, and then Michael Ferreira turned professional. So the whole movement, the modern era professional movement, started in '85 really, and before we knew it, by 1990, we had all the leading players, the world amateur champions, all turned professional. I myself turned professional in 1989, and I had a horrendous 2 years. I just couldn't do anything right. I was, losing to players I shouldn't be losing to, and but things are different in the professional circuit as compared to the amateur circuit. Every match is a tough match. It's all a knockout tournament. So you fly to England. You take a train from a tube from Heathrow to London King's Cross. Take a train up to Leeds, and you land up in the hotel. Go next morning, and God forbid you don't play well. You just lose and take the next flight back home.
Geet soon became the toast of the nation. He was showered with awards by admiring fans and sports organizations. But the most cherished award that Geet received was the Arjuna Award, the highest honor a sportsman can achieve, and also the Padma Shri. And as Geet moved from one glory to another, he received accolades not just from sports fans but even his co-players, who were lavish in their praise for this brilliant young man. Geet may have been drawn to play billiards just for the sheer love of the game, but very soon it became his life's goal to be counted among the top professionals of the world. And the first step towards attaining this goal was in 1985.
What about points that Geet might still need to improve on?
I think, I don't know if he's going to listen to this program, and I don't know what he's going to say if he does. I think of recent times his focus has been a bit diluted. He's reached the stage where he realizes there's a lot more to life than billiards, which is fair enough. And by reason of this realization, his total commitment, shall we say, or total focus, that's the word I like to use, is to that extent lessened. And it is beginning to tell on his game.
But how is he mentally as a sportsman? I mean, how did he take the adulation and the hero worship that goes with excellent performances?
With a very mature sort of attitude. And that is where he differs from so many of our other young sportsmen. He's been able to accept the adulation and absorb it, digest it, and come out a better person. It's not changed him.
Worldwide, he's definitely one of the best players in the world. And when he won the World Championship in '92 and '93, he really was playing some outstanding billiards, and some of the best billiards, probably some of the best billiards I've ever seen. He played in '92 and '93. Yeah.
He started in billiards in the professional ranks. He was a bit shaky to begin with, but then he's come up and become the best in the world, and you can't do any better than that.
सुभाष, आपने गीत के खेल को पनपते हुए देखा होगा शुरू से ही, तो उसके खेल के बारे में आपकी क्या राय है?
मैं बता दूं, मैंने गीत को तो मेरे ख्याल से 76 से मैं उसे खेलते हुए देखते आ रहा हूं। जब वो पहली बार बॉम्बे में जूनियर खेलने आया था, गुजरात रिप्रेजेंट, और तभी से ये हो हल्ला था कि बहुत अच्छा खेलता है। तभी उसने बड़े बड़े ब्रेक बना चुका था, और 76 के बाद में वो फैंसीड भी कहलाता था जूनियर के। अनफॉर्चुनेटली वो जीत न सका, लेकिन जो सुना था उसके बारे में, उसने 81 में कर दिखाया, जबकि 81 में मद्रास में ही उसने जूनियर और सीनियर बिलियर्ड्स जीता, और फ्लुक से नहीं, अपने कैलिबर के हिसाब से उसने अच्छे बड़े बड़े ब्रेक बनाए। जबकि माइकल और मैं, हम लोग भी बहुत ही बड़ी हस्तियों में माने जाते थे, और हमारे लिए भी 400, 500, 600 के ब्रेक कुछ नहीं थे। उस समय वो गीत ने जो टाइटल जीते वो रियली क्रेडिटेबल थी।
आपको क्या शुरू से लगता था कि गीत सेठी विश्व चैंपियन बनने लायक है?
आफ्टर मद्रास नेशनल्स, यस, मैं सोच सकता था कि जरूर ये वर्ल्ड के लिए खतरा है।
और क्या गीत ने वो सब कर दिखाया जो आपने उसके लिए सोचा था?
बिल्कुल, मैं उसके बारे में भी सोचता था, खुद अपने बारे में भी सोचता था कि मैं भी कर सकता हूँ, लेकिन दौड़ में वो आगे निकल गया।
Is there one special ability about his game, about the way he plays, that you think is probably outstanding?
Well, I think his top of the table play is terrific, especially when he made those big breaks a couple of years ago. He was playing postman's knock, which was a bit more monotonous because of its, exactness, if you like. But that postman's knock, when he was playing that well, nobody's played it like that for years and years.
वो कभी अपनी हार मानने के लिए तैयार नहीं है, और टेबल पे लास्ट मोमेंट तक अगर वो पीछे भी है तो ये सोचते रहता है कि नहीं, मैं जीत सकता हूँ, मैं जीत सकता हूँ। और काफ़ी समय उसने ये कर दिखाया है कि कई सौ पॉइंट पीछे होने के बावजूद भी उसने वो गेम जीता है। लाइक वर्ल्ड चैम्पियनशिप, गोल्ड फ्लैग वर्ल्ड चैम्पियनशिप, जो कि 2 साल पहले माइक रसल और गीत सेठी के बीच खेला गया था। स्टार्टिंग में ये रसल ने 700 पॉइंट की लीड ले ली, तो लोगों में यही था कि अब तो गीत नहीं खेल सकेगा, लेकिन उसने वो 700 पॉइंट कवर करके और 700 पॉइंट की जो जीत हासिल की, वो उसकी क्वालिटी के लिए काफ़ी है ये।
Victories at the highest level did bring you your share of rewards, hopefully, and awards. I mean, you won the Arjuna Award in 1987, and even before that, in a rare incident, you won the Padma Shri. So, what did all these awards mean to you?
They meant, well, it's any award is a recognition of the government or of an institution. It's a kind of stamp of recognition. So that's all that it really meant. And but to be fair, the Padma Shri means a lot. It really does mean a lot. It's not given to anybody. There's a committee which sits, and that's one award which one really cherishes.
And the Arjuna Award?
The Arjuna Award ironically came after I got the Padma Shri.
Do you consider yourself to be to have reached some sort of a peak, and are you still hoping for greater glory, or are you beginning to taper off? How are you handling it now?
I think I'm beginning to taper off. It's been a long innings. I mean, at 34, I've been playing the sport at a competitive level for almost 20 years.
So you have other interests now which occupy your time?
Yeah, well, I've started a couple of businesses, and business excites me.
The business management degree, right?
Well, business excites me. The game, I don't see whether, I mean, I can't foresee myself raising the level of my game from what I've already done. It's very difficult to beat that.
What about family life, Geet? How does it go with the family? What is your wife doing? Children?
My wife is a graduate of the NID. She's a graphic designer, so she keeps busy in her own way. She operates from home. She freelances. She's designed a couple of restaurants. She's does corporate identities. Very, very supportive. Very supportive. She looks after the children. I'm off for 2 weeks and I'll be back. She'll be there. I'm off for 3 weeks. I'll be back. She'll be there. So she's played a very important role also in my achievements. There's no doubt about that.
What kind of ambition do you have for your children? How do you see them growing up? Do you want to channelize them in certain directions? Sport, maybe?
I have no ambition for my children. I mean, it's what they've got to do, they've got to do. As a parent, one has to support them in whatever they do.
And are they showing any inclination towards any sport? Is it too early? Or?
My son he's 4 years and 3-4 months old now, and he's a very coordinated chap, but he's not really shown any interest for any particular game. I mean,
but should he? You'd encourage him?
Of course I'd encourage him. I mean, say he were to show interest in playing anything, tennis, squash, swimming, and if I felt that he really had potential, I would even go so far as to say, like, forget your school and just concentrate on the game. Great. I mean, there's no problem on that.
56. 58. 60. 62.
'President helps him raise it up.